Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. I am so excited today to bring you Anna Lundberg. She is the founder of One Step Outside, where she helps experienced professionals around the world design a career, a business, and a lifestyle that brings them more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment outside of the conventional 9 to 5. Hey, Anna, welcome to the show.
Hello, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me. And hello, everybody watching as well. Really good to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you. So why don't we start? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, how you got into it.
Yes, sure. I guess as for many people, a bit of a long, winding story, so I'll try to keep it short. But I guess I had a pretty conventional career path originally. I always say I had the good girl syndrome of sort of good school, good university, good job. And then back in 2013, for whatever reason, I had some kind of awakening. I asked to take a sabbatical. I traveled across South America for 3 months. And I just kind of opened my mind, I guess, to other ways of living. I read lots of books. I'm not sure if I listened to podcasts at the time, but I definitely have done since then. And so that I couldn't get back into my comfort zone when I came back, I actually called up and quit my job while I was away without really having a plan of what I wanted to do. And of course, that was 7 years ago. Since then, a few twists and turns, as I said. I came from a marketing branding background. So initially, I went straight into digital marketing consulting. Then the pendulum swung to what I like to call my hippie phase, which was more sort of having fun, traveling, but not earning so much money. And then the last few years, I'm happy to say that I've been able to combine the two. So I'm combining my business branding, marketing experience and expertise, but also mixing that up with things that I enjoy: coaching, writing, speaking, traveling, and all those things. From a personal perspective, I guess, as you can hear, I grew up in England. My parents are Swedish. And after I quit my job, I went through that kind of digital nomad phase of building that location independent business and traveling around. But I have since then, I guess not so recently, but fallen in love with an Englishman. So I'm back in London. We had a baby and a little bit more settled now, but still very much, enjoying the location independent business, which of course works very well during the particular pandemic at the moment as well. So I guess that in a nutshell is a little bit about me personally and how I came to do what I'm doing today.
Incredible. Okay, so you're traveling in South America for a while. What made you realize, like, hey, I want to quit? I don't want to work in an office. Like, was there an aha moment or a light bulb, or what happened there?
To be honest, in a way, there wasn't. And I think now I see with some people, there is a trigger, and it could be a positive trigger. Like, in a way, you get promoted and then you go, hang on, this isn't very meaningful for me. Or it could be a negative trigger like burnout or redundancy. For me, I think it was just a gradual grinding down of who I was. And there was a big disconnect. I had wanted to work at the United Nations. I'd studied politics and economics and development, and I thought I was going to change the world and make an impact. And that didn't happen because I accidentally ended up in the private sector selling perfume to rich people, if we're going to really distill it down. So there was that disconnect always. So I think that just happened over time, over 7-8 years of working an incredible company, fantastic, training and colleagues and so on. But it was never really what I wanted to do. So I think over time that just kind of wore me down. And of course, going away, traveling is always such a great way to get out of your comfort zone, talk to people who are doing such different things, making me realize that my little 3 months that I was so nervous about actually wasn't such a big deal. People were traveling indefinitely for years, unemployed, young, old, single, married, divorced, whatever. And it just opened my eyes a bit to some less conventional, maybe, paths outside of my immediate bubble.
Definitely. So funny. I studied political science too, and I wanted to work for UNICEF specifically because I thought that was how I was going to change the world. But come to realize there's many different ways that you can make an impact, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with like that one job that you thought you were going to have, right?
That's it. And that's exactly it. Yeah.
Talk to us about reimagining success.
Yeah, so it's something I came to organically, but it is exactly what we're talking about. Funnily enough, and I find that hilarious that you had the same, but not surprisingly, I think, because we come out of school and university thinking, oh, we're going to change the world and make a difference. And I think we have a very narrow view of what that could or should be. So of course the joke is when we're little, we want to be a firefighter or a nurse or a veterinarian. There's only certain very specific jobs we can imagine. Most of the things, certainly what you and I are doing today, we had no idea. In fact, they didn't even exist when we came out of school. So it's impossible to imagine that. And I think for most of us, unfortunately, and I like to think it's changing, but I think we've inherited this definition of success, which is something around this kind of conveyor belt path, which is the school and the university and a job for life and the salary and the promotion, the house, the mortgage, the American dream, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And I think more and more people are beginning to question, and certainly around our kind of age, maybe we want to start a family, maybe we have started a family, maybe now the pandemic again has triggered you to rethink that a little bit. And for me, it's just opening our eyes a little bit and thinking, hang on a second, are all these things that I'm doing getting me closer to where I want to be? Where do I want to be? Maybe we've never even asked ourselves that, and we've just been blindly following this path because that's kind of what we were taught to do. So it's quite scary because we begin to question things that we've taken for granted. But it's also incredibly exciting because, of course, it means we can reimagine and really look to a very different way of living and working.
How do you get clear on what it is that you want from your life and in your business?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it? Some people are very
Uh-huh.
lucky and they're clear. They've always known. I mean, I've had certain inklings myself. I always wanted to be a writer. Of course, I had some very vague, idealized view of living by the sea and being a Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, whatever. The reality of writing is very different, but I've managed to sort of pick that apart and write, which is ultimately what being a writer is about. Self-publishing versus maybe waiting for a traditional publisher and so on. So some people, I think, if we deep down admit to ourselves, if we dare to express what we actually do want to do, a lot of us do know, even though we're not quite courageous enough to speak up to ourselves, let alone to other people. But of course, there are lots of exercise we can do. Again, stepping away from your immediate bubble, traveling if you can, taking a course, just doing something you don't usually do, meeting people, go to a workshop, just try something new, just getting out of your usual path, I think can be really important to trigger. And then I like to use the Ikigai model. I don't know if you've come across that. It's a Japanese concept from the island of Okinawa. And it's a Venn diagram, if you remember those from school. It's the work that you are really good at, the work that you love to do, work that will make a meaningful difference and impact in the world. And that doesn't, as we said, have to be saving children's lives and so on. It can be, but it can be in many different aspects of life. And then finally, of course, because it's a business, not a hobby or a charity, it needs to actually be something you can monetize. So if you can find that magic place where you're doing things you're good at, that you love, that feels meaningful to you, and that you can monetize, that's really where we're trying to aim for. And I think just mapping out what your skills are, interests and so on can be a good first step, at least, to seeing some more possibilities, looking beyond your current job title that you happen to be doing and seeing a lot more opportunities for what you could create, especially as a business owner, because you can literally create your dream job, your dream business.
Okay, so I love what you said about getting out of your bubble, and traveling. And I was actually just talking to my mom about this today because as you might know, there's more riots going on in America after the Breonna Taylor incident. And we're just talking, we're like, how the heck can we like create change? And I'm like, people need to hang out with people that are different than them. Like that's such a big thing. And obviously travel is a great way to do it. But something that I did when I wasn't traveling was I actually would go and volunteer and work with refugees. There's a ton of refugee like resettlement organizations or immigration resettlement organizations. Like there's so many things like that where you can just spend time with people that are different than you. In college, it was me. I was hanging out with the international like exchange students, the foreign exchange students, and getting to like know kids from Germany and being like, oh, this is what they do like for fun, and this is how they hang out. So I think you have to be intentional about putting yourself in those kind of situations. It doesn't necessarily have to be travel, especially now when travel is hard. You can't leave the country, but I think hanging out with people that are different than you can definitely expand your worldview and see the things that you want. Cool. So let's say you're not entirely sure on what it is that you want to do to, escape that 9 to 5. What are some other ways we can get clear on this path?
Well, I think I also talk about the push and the pull reasons. So if you are still in your job, thinking about what are the reasons why I want to escape or to leave. And it could be, again, a lot of us just, it's fine. It's not like it's awful. We don't hate our jobs. There's just something. And it could be, that there's a disconnect between what you thought you wanted to do and what you are doing. It could be the values of the organization you're in. It could be the logistics, the commute. Again, it doesn't work with your so-called work-life balance and so on. So understanding the push reasons is the reasons why you want to escape. So the negative stuff, the toxic work culture, the bad boss, the PowerPoint presentations, but also the pull. And that's the harder bit, I think, that we often forget. What are we moving towards? So I like alliteration, and I always talk about freedom, flexibility, fulfillment, but also, of course, financial security. And so thinking about what would it look like if I could do what I actually want to do. And I always say, focus on the what before the how. And it's so difficult because we always get caught up in, and I've had this with a few clients this week, but that can never work because, or I just can't see how that would be. Oh no, but. And of course, that way we're just going to limit ourselves and rule out any possibility of doing anything different. So as naive and idealistic it might seem, try to give yourself the space to explore, to imagine first, however crazy it might seem, get clear on what you want to do. And then we can go, okay, it might not be possible tomorrow, or even it might not be possible at all in that exact version, but there are certainly elements of that we can take. We can start working towards it. We can take little steps in the right direction. And then before you know it, probably, who knows, 5-10 years, probably, I would guess sooner rather than later, you'll be really close to, if not living, actually that unrealistic dream that you had. So really allowing yourself just to dream and imagine, again, getting out of that bubble, vision boarding, journaling, whatever your preferred medium, going for a run, having a bath, just take yourself a little bit out of it, and imagining what if, rather than getting bogged down by all the limitations and all the reasons why it shouldn't work.
Okay, this is huge, 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 huge. So I hope everyone's listening and taking notes to this. When I attended Tony Robbins' Business Mastery, he said exactly what you said. He goes, I want you to focus on the what and the why, forget about the how. He's like, I don't care about the how right now. I want you to know what you want, why you want it, and you'll figure out the how as you go. Like, just don't even worry. Because so many people, they do get bogged down in the details. And then they create a story of why they can't do it, or it's too hard, or all this stuff. So the what and the why, I think that's incredible.
I love that Tony Robbins agrees with me. So clearly he
yes.
knows what talking about. That's good. I'll add that to my website to say Tony Robbins says 100% agree with Anna. So that's really important. But it's not even just limiting. It's also maybe, and it's easy to latch onto an idea just because you can do it. I happen to have digital marketing skills. So yes, I could be a digital marketer, or people say I could do this, could do that. And that's the only idea we've considered. And then often another mistake we make is we think we have to do a formal degree, like an MBA or an expensive course. And then, hey, 2-4 years later, you put all this work and money into it, and it's not actually what you wanted to do. So that's why the what and the why, exactly that, is so important, because you're going to have to work hard. Let's, as much as I'm for balance and not hustling and not burning out and so on, it's not easy to set up a business or change career direction. So it is going to be hard work. So you better make sure it's something that's worth it at the end of that tunnel, or if there is an end, but certainly that you're moving towards something that is going to make your life better, rather than just, again, be a detour that takes you further away from what you want to do. So yes, Tony and I agree, what and why before the how. Absolutely.
Absolutely. What's the 5 steps to a sustainable escape plan?
So thank you for asking. This is something that came organically over the years, but I think it's really consolidated, and it just gives me a framework that helps you, I think this through. And unfortunately, it's not the magic, 5 steps to a 7-figure business or whatever. So I just want to set the expectations. There's more pillars, principles to consider. And of course, the first is to get really clear on your personal definition of success. And that really is in big picture terms, not just this kind of job, that kind of job, but really, what does my ideal day look like? Where am I? Who am I with? Do I like to work individually with people, one to many, out and about, at home, in my office, whatever? So really imagine what am I trying to achieve here for me, for my family, and what does that look like? And the second thing is building your confidence and resilience. And of course, resilience is a really key word, I guess, almost become a bit sort of cliche, become a bit trendy, but it's such an important piece. One of my biggest lessons, and I'm sure most of us who are running our own business will find this too, is it's all about just keep going, showing up, embracing the so-called failures, which are not failures, it's just learning. It's going to be tough. We won't always, in fact, probably often we won't get the results we were hoping for. And it's just keep going, assuming you're moving in the right direction and having that confidence to believe, no, it's not a question of if this is going to work, it's just how and when this is going to ultimately work. The third pillar is finding the right business model. And I was just talking about this on my podcast this week, actually, in terms of you have to set it up so it works for you. You know, it's so easy to look at what other people are doing, but actually your life situation, young children, whatever, your preferences, your skill set, your clients are so different. So really thinking about what is the model that's going to support your definition of success. Building a personal brand, really important, so that you're not constantly chasing clients, but being something, you know, you're standing for something, having a mission, having that credibility, perhaps having a podcast, writing a book, speaking, whatever that looks like, but having a platform where you can really speak to people about what you believe, attracting them to your message. And then finally, what I call work-life integration. So I know we talk a lot about work-life balance, but for me, it's a bit of a false dichotomy putting work versus life. I feel like work is a part of life. So finding a way to integrate those things with all the other things and above all people that matter in our life. So again, really making sure the business model, the day-to-day, the hours you're working, you're setting boundaries and all those things. So right from big picture definition of success, right down to the nitty-gritty of showing up every day and making it work for you, for your health, for your family, and so on.
I think that's so important because we might see people on social media or have mentors on YouTube that they're successful, but it might be a different definition of success that we have. So an example might be like Gary Vaynerchuk. He is by all means successful and incredible. And I adore him. So this isn't Gary bashing by any means, but he works crazy hours. And while I would love to, you know, have the level of success he does, I would never sacrifice my family in order to achieve that. And so for me, I wouldn't use him as like a personal mentor. Maybe I might like learn some stuff for him, but I wouldn't follow his business model in order to get to that level of success, if you know what I mean. So I actually picked a mentor who takes 5.5 months off every year and has children. And I'm like, all right, she's someone I can learn from because I want to be able to put family first and build. She has an 8-figure company. And so I'm like, all right, I can learn from her. Right. So I love that you said figuring out what success looks like for you specifically and not someone else's definition, and then figuring out how to build that business model around that. I think that's so important.
That's it. And even Gary, in fact, and I do the same. I don't want to bash back him either, but I do talk about him as the example. Even Elon Musk claimed he never sleeps. It's not possible to be successful and not sleep. And I'm like, that's not a model I, subscribe to. It's certainly not something I recommend. But even, Gary Vaynerchuk says, look, this is just how I do it. I'm not saying you should do it this way, right? So that's really important. So I think, and again, finding those mentors, role models who, and probably she still won't match 100% what you want, but at least, you see, wow, she's hugely successful financially and in terms of branding and business wise and making an impact. However, she also is able to prioritize family first and 5.5 months off. That's such a dream, isn't it? So many people now, we want to take big chunks of time off, whether it's during the day, during the week, during the year. And it's amazing to have those real life people who are out there doing that. So looking for those people in your space, in other industries, fields as well, will really help you believe that it's possible.
Definitely. What are some of the biggest failures? I know you said like you don't believe in failures, but like some of the biggest mistakes maybe that you've made that have led to where you are and things that you've learned from that have helped you grow.
I mean, possibly the biggest failure mistake was this sort of blindly following, just kind of doing what other people told me to do. And for many years, I did blame other people in the way. I certainly didn't take ownership, responsibility for my decisions. It's very easy to say, oh, but my culture or my parents and the teachers. And I was lucky in a way because I was interested in and good at quite a lot of different subjects. There was no obvious path. So as soon as someone said, oh, you can't possibly be a journalist, you'll never earn money that way, or don't do this, I'd be like, oh, okay. And I'd just go off. So I had no confidence or sort of intuition around listening to myself and going for what I want to do. And that's been the biggest, hardest lesson, I think. Quitting my job in a way was my biggest success ever because it was the first time I really listened to my intuition. And since then, to be honest, it's very easy to crawl back into my comfort zone again. It's easy, now that I'm back at home. I've got this picture of myself paddleboarding on the Mississippi, and I want to say it's like 5 years ago now. I'm still clutching onto this adventurous period in my life, and it feels quite far off, and that's okay because your definition of success evolves as well. But I think that's always been a challenge, to keep challenging what you're doing. Hang on a second, am I still working towards what I wanted? Because again, initially when I quit, I was all about freedom and that hippie sort of adventure and the crazy wild stuff, and I quite enjoyed being the kind of strange one who was out doing, you know, exciting adventurous things. It's hard then to let go of that, to say, hey, I'm moving back to London, I'm going to have a family, and then it might feel like, oh, people think I've given up and I've gone back to something. But for me, that was the right decision. And then now possibly my partner has left his 9 to 5, hooray, and we have the possibility of going elsewhere. And so we're reimagining what that could look like for us. So, you know, it is sort of phases and seasons, but it is definitely a challenge to keep, or not keep every day. You also don't want to be sort of reevaluating every day, because that gets exhausting, but at least now and then check in, hang on, am I still working towards what I want to be working towards, and has that thing that I want changed actually?
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see your clients make?
So some of the things we've already talked about, the sort of the racing into the how, as we talked about, which is a big one. You know, latching on to something that just happens to be what I can do. That's another one. And giving up too soon, I think, is the biggest thing that I see just generally, right? I think if you just, there are all those graphs and cartoons on like Instagram and whatever saying, like, if you just had gone a little bit further, you would have got to the treasure. And my biggest insight, I guess, from this whole entrepreneur experience is that it's not sexy, but it's the slog. It's just keep going and going. Consistency, you know, you're not seeing the results, but 3 months later you will, and you just have to keep, no one's on my live, but I'm still going to talk, or I'm going to keep putting out these things, I'm going to keep selling this program, keep doing the webinar, and then people will come, because they'll, you know, you'll refine your message, you'll become more confident, you'll attract the right people, and it will grow. It's just, it's a lot slower than we expect or hope it will be. And unfortunately, I've seen in sort of more my friendship colleague group that many people went back to a job because they just thought, oh, it's too hard and I'm lonely and it's not working. And then, you know, unfortunately then chose to go back. Well, I mean, choosing to go back is one thing if, again, that feels like it's the right thing for you, but it's a sad thing to do, I guess, if you just haven't quite given yourself the chance, got the support you needed, and found a way to at least try to make something work. So yeah, that's the biggest mistake, I think, is just giving up too soon and not getting the help you need, not just, you know, continuing just that little bit further to probably get to, if not where you wanted to be, certainly somewhere that's pretty amazing too, and perhaps unexpected.
Totally. I love to say, like, don't give up before the miracle happens. It's like you give up when you're so close. And it's like if you just stuck with it a little bit more. And I think people struggle with this idea of like, I'm going to show up and create content and I'm going to have like thousands of comments and like it's going to happen overnight, when in reality, it takes time to develop a brand and a following and build an email list. And if you stick with it, you will be successful. So like your success is inevitable when you commit and when you decide. And a lot of people are like, if this works, like I'm just going to try it and see if this works out for me. And you have, like, I like to say you have to be really stubborn and say when this works. Like I think entrepreneurs need to be so resilient, persistent, and freaking stubborn as all heck. Because if you give yourself that way out, then it's really easy to take it. But if you're committed and you say, I want to stick with this and I will be successful and I'm going to do this until I have that success, then your success is inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely. And even on a smaller scale, if you're doing a launch or something, I see that again and again, you know, and I feel it myself, experience it. You've done this big challenge or webinar or whatever, and it's a massive thing and engagement, and then you sort of, oh my gosh, I'm selling, nobody's buying, what am I going to do? And we just kind of pull back and I don't think I'll do that Q&A because I don't want to show up and no one turns up, instead of actually just keep going. And actually most sales will come in the last 24 48 hours, and that's something, again, we just have to swallow our pride and ego and go, nope, keep showing up. And even again, if they don't buy this time, I'll have built my brand, they'll probably buy next time, or they'll recommend me to someone else. And it's have exactly that stubbornness and a little bit of, I don't want to say arrogance, but you almost need to be, you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe, why on earth should your clients believe, right? So there is a bit of sort of overconfidence in a way that you need to have.
How do you develop that?
When I find out how to do that, I'll let you know. I certainly don't quite, you know, and it's so easy to compare yourself to other people. I see other people, I don't to make generalizations, perhaps sometimes I see more men than women. The classic thing is, you know, when you apply to a job, a woman will only apply if she ticks 11 of the 10 boxes, whereas the guy will apply if he ticks 4 of the boxes. And it's not just men and women, of course, but, you know, I certainly grew up in a culture where we're not supposed to sort of tell people that we're good. I underplayed my success at school, because otherwise I would have been seen as a nerd, a geek, whatever. Becoming now an entrepreneur, which is even hard to say. I'm an entrepreneur in itself, can take some time getting used to. Saying I'm a writer, I'm an author, it takes time getting comfortable with these labels, and just again showing up. I think it's just the stubbornness of just keep doing it. Funnily enough, just video and Facebook lives and things, I had a Facebook memory just the other day from 3-4 years ago when I did my first Facebook live, and it was awful. And I shared it with everyone saying, just so you know, not to say that I'm amazing now, but this is, how far I've come. And I just had to keep going. And, after you've done it every week, every month for 2-3 years, and I don't want to put you off by saying it takes that long, but of course, over time, you suddenly don't notice. My podcast is coming up to 100 episodes. And when I started, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And am I going to be able to keep this going? And so on. And before you know it, you have built that sort of, and I think it is time. A lot of it is just time, but certainly looking for inspirational role models and just owning what you're doing, because there's a reason why you're offering this service or product. You've built this business. You want to make an impact. You have something to give. So again, just go back to your why, what it is you're trying to do, who you're trying to help, and focus on that, and forget about all the sales and the tactics and the tools and technology. That doesn't matter. It's about your message and how you want to help people.
Totally. I love like going back and seeing like my first videos of what I put out there. Oh my gosh. If you go, you can go back to my old YouTube channel and see for fun what my old videos used to look like. But we all start somewhere. And I think it's just a matter of just starting and giving yourself the permission to suck in the beginning, because you're not going to be perfect and you'll never be perfect.
No, we never will be.
No, like I'm hiding in the closet and I hear kids like running out there, and I'm like, at least the grandma's probably has it under control and only God knows what's happening. But yeah, like you'll never be perfect. And if you just give yourself that permission to show up messy, not perfect, and just if you have that intention of I'm going to serve today, no matter what it looks like, I think you'll be successful.
Do you know what's amazing now as well is that being vulnerable, being yourself is so much more attractive and honest, and people love that. People buy from people. You're going to attract the people who love you. In fact, beginning to admit, hey, I struggle with this, or I've got breast milk on my top, or like I just haven't slept tonight.
I usually do. I actually changed before, but normally I have like a huge rain of breast milk. I'm like, oh, it's leaking. Gosh.
There you go. So right, and often I try to do audio. Some days I try to batch, and then I'm wearing some lipstick, and then it's okay. But actually always showing up and trying to be perfect on your videos, that's going to be really artificial. It's going to come across as fake. Maybe it'll appeal to some people, and of course, if you have a certain type of clientele, the perfectly manicured nails and hair and makeup. To be honest, when I first started doing videos, I curled my hair and I'm sitting like this, and I look really stiff, and it's not really working at all. So there's the full spectrum, and again, there are so many people. It's that abundance mindset. There's so many different personalities, and you may look at someone else and judge them, oh, that's not the style I would use. Fine, but there are many other people who would appreciate that. Likewise, some people might criticize you, but that's okay. There are all the more people who love what you're doing, and it's again keeping showing up. So again, it's redefining success in a way. It's not about being the perfect presence on camera. It's again, you have a message. Also, I always think of this in terms of, if you're meeting someone romantically as well. I used to, embarrassingly, but, dating, when you're younger, you sort of want to pretend that you're cool. And certainly I did. And I sort of wanted to put on, I was probably quieter and I didn't want to say the wrong thing. And, oh, yeah, I like that cool music. But what happens then is you'll meet someone who likes this fake persona you've created, and that's never going to make for a long-term relationship. And I just think it's the same with clients. If I put on, pretend to be something I'm not, either the perfectly manicured whatever, or some really like, I don't know, grungy, like down to earth hippie, that's not going to work. So ultimately, whether it's meeting a partner or getting that perfect client, I think being yourself has to be the best way to do it, because when they start living with you or start working with you, you'll be exactly what you promised. The way I show up on video is exactly how I'm in person, and that's refreshing for me. It means I don't have to pretend. It also means they know exactly what they're getting, and they're much more likely to be happy and satisfied with working with me, because they already know, hey, I know Anna's style, I know her principles, I know her personality, I've seen her, and it's just a continuation of that relationship in a way.
So true. Oh my gosh. Yeah. When you do this, like you end up attracting your dream clients. We had an event last year, and I just remember all the students that came in from literally all over the world. We had people come from like Australia and the UK, and we were all like wine drinking, yoga pants wearing, just like super chill, and loved just having fun. And yeah, like none of us were dressed like super fancy or anything. It was like, all right, we're just gonna go out in our yoga pants and be comfortable and drink our wine and have fun while we do it. So when you do that, like you'll just attract the people that you love to work with, which is so fun.
Love that.
What's the best book you've read?
Oh gosh, this question, like I'm sure it must be difficult for people to answer. I read so many books over the years. I think that's been my biggest source of inspiration and practical tips, especially at the beginning when I was traveling. I read a lot by Chris Gillibo at the time. He had The Art of Nonconformity. He started out blogging. He visited every country in the world. I think it was 192 countries at the time. And he had a blog that was all around sort of life and work and so on. He's written lots of books since then. But the book I was going to say is Chillpreneur by Denise Duffield Thomas. I've just literally come off reading that, and I think her philosophy in that book is very much aligned to mine about sort of finding your personal definition of success and this idea of work-life integration, and of course charging the prices, having the business model that works for you, and so on. So Chillpreneur, it sounds like a bit of a catchy title, but actually has a lot of substance to it, and definitely worth a read.
I swear, if I look like perplexed, it's because I swear someone else just recommended this on the show. And I'm like, wait, okay, so that's a sign that I need to read it now.
I think so, yeah. So it's an easy read, but it's definitely, I think for you, just some reminders and you're like, oh yeah, exactly. Yes, of course. And in fact, funny enough, she goes from the big picture right down to actually, I think she links to on a website bonuses, which include templates for how you say no to a client who's requesting a refund, or how, really down to the nitty gritty. So I love that kind of build a business that works for you, big picture, but also here's concretely how you can do that with legal terms and conditions and emails and boundaries and so on. So good from the big picture down to the detail.
That's awesome. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
Oh, what a question. So I guess as we talked right at the beginning, I thought it was this kind of big purpose of changing the world, and you had to do that via a non-governmental organization or via the United Nations or something like that, which of course some people do, which is incredible. That hasn't been my path, as it turned out. The other aspect for me is what it isn't. So for me, it's the reaction against what I was doing in my corporate job. So sitting in my ivory tower, I was very much strategy as well. So not just selling perfume, but I was, doing PowerPoint presentations and Excel sheets and stuff, and then kind of sending it out into the world. And then the local markets would do stuff with it. So who knows what impact I was making at all. So for me now, it's really having the much more direct contact with people, obviously helping other people make an impact actually. So rather than me trying to go out there with my flag and change the world, I'm hopefully helping many other people do that, and so my impact becomes much bigger. But it's really, the day-to-day of working with clients, even having a conversation like this with you, it's my favorite thing of working for myself, I think, has been this opportunity to meet people around the world. Hopefully somebody listening will hear a nugget that changes something, and I might not never find it. That's good grammar. I might never find out about what impact that has made, but just knowing, that there are people out there listening. In fact, when I first started blogging, as with what we were talking about, nobody was reading it and so on, but I began to get a person here, a person there replying, saying, oh, I read this, it's exactly how I'm feeling, thanks so much, or I've just taken a leap too. And just hearing those little responses is so fulfilling. Whether they become a client or not, it just feels amazing that someone's been inspired, they've listened, and they've made a change because of something you said.
Yep, I love that. Where can we connect with you?
So I mentioned that, I'm coming up to 100 episodes of my podcast. If you're a fan of podcasts, which I imagine you are if you're listening to this, then the Reimagining Success podcast is the best place to find me, and also One Step Outside on Facebook. So my brand is called One Step Outside. It's based on the quote that everything you've ever wanted is one step outside your comfort zone. So again, it's that big picture of the dream and what you want, your vision of success, but it's possible through little steps. Doesn't have to be a massive dramatic transformation or a leap. So, as we said, showing up and learning and making mistakes, but just keep taking those steps, and you'll be surprised how you can transform your life and your business over time.
Awesome. I love it, Anna. I loved our conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Rachel. Really lovely to speak to you.